We continue now with the Passion History, the sixth reading, the crucifixion and death of Jesus. Then the soldiers took Jesus, they took the robe off him, put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him, and he carried his cross. And as they came out, they found a man who was coming out of the country, Simon of Cyrene by name, who was the father of Alexander and Rufus. They compelled him to carry the cross for him, and laid the cross on him that he might bear it after Jesus. And a great multitude of the people followed him, and women who also mourned and lamented him. But Jesus, turning to them, said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, Blessed are the barren, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts which never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things in the green wood, what will be done in the dry?" And there were also two other criminals led with him to be put to death. And they brought him to the place which is called in Hebrew Golgotha, that is to say, the place of the skull. And they gave him sour wine mingled with myrrh to drink. And when he had tasted it, he would not drink. And they crucified him at the place Golgotha, and the two criminals with him, one on the right and the other on the left, and Jesus in the center. And the scripture was fulfilled which says, "And he was numbered with the transgressors." And it was the third hour when they crucified him. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do." And Pilate wrote a title, the accusation against him, the reason for his death, and they put it on the cross over his head, and the writing was, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Then many Jews read this title, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Then the chief priests of the Jews said to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews, but he said, I am the King of the Jews." Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." The soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments and made 4 parts to each soldier a part, and also his tunic. Now the tunic was without seam, woven from the top in one piece. They said therefore among themselves, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots for whose it shall be, that the scripture might be fulfilled, which says, They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." And sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Now there stood by the cross of Jesus his mother, his mother's sister Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." And then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, that disciple took her to his own home. And those who passed by blasphemed him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." Likewise the chief priests also, mocking with the scribes and elders along with the people, said, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. If he is the King of Israel, the chosen of God, let him save himself and now come down from the cross, that we may see and believe him. He trusted in God. Let him deliver him now, if he will have him. For he said, I am the Son of God." Even the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him with the same thing. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming and offering him sour wine, saying, "If you are the King of the Jews, save yourself." And one of the criminals who were hanged blasphemed him, saying, "If you are the Christ, save yourself and us." But the other, answering, rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, seeing you are under the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus said to him, "Assuredly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." And it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. And the sun was darkened, and about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," that is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Some of those who stood there when they heard that said, "This man is calling for Elijah." After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, said, "I thirst." Now a vessel full of sour wine was sitting there, and immediately one of them ran, took a sponge, and filled it with sour wine, put it on hyssop, and put it to his mouth for him to drink. But the other said, "Let him alone. Let us see if Elijah will come and take him down." So when Jesus received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And again he cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." And when he had said that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from the top to the bottom, and the earth quaked, and the rocks were split, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the graves after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. Now when the centurion who stood opposite him, and those with him who were guarding Jesus, saw that he cried out like this, and saw the earthquake and the things that had happened, they feared greatly and praised God, saying, "Certainly this was a righteous man. Truly this was the Son of God." And all the multitude who came together to that sight, seeing the things which were done, beat their breasts and returned. And all his acquaintances and the women who followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching these things, among whom were Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and Salome the mother of Zebedee's sons, who followed him when he was in Galilee, ministering to him, and many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. Therefore, because it was the preparation day, that the bodies should not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day, the Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken, and that they might be taken away. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who was crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. And he who saw it bore witness, and his witness is true, and he knows that he is telling the truth, that you may believe. For these things were done that the scripture should be fulfilled. Not one of his bones shall be broken. And again another scripture says, "They will look on him whom they pierced." Here ends the reading. Praise be to the Lord our God. Amen.